I mean, are you surprised at anything Matt Prater does at this point, like from that distance?
Nope. No, we watch it every week. Been around him for a long time, and we know what his capabilities are, and it obviously takes the right situation to have him attempt that. But we've got kind of a line every game where we feel comfortable in all situations, where we feel comfortable longer down in distances, before the half, before the game. Are you up, you down, or is it tied? And all that plays into it. But Matt's certainly capable of a lot.
Those conversations, I'm sure, like most players, pretty confident. If I can do it, I can do it. How do you balance that of that's really far, we don't need to test it, and being like, okay, let's see if you can do it?
Yeah, well, ultimately it's the head coach's decision on what he feels like's right. I've studied that stuff for a long time, and some of the more successful teams, what they do within those down and distances and field position, that weighs into it. But, we're never going to put Matt in a situation where we feel like he can't be successful. So that's kind of where it starts. Is he capable of it? Now the conversation starts, and, like I said, ultimately JG is going to make that decision.
He said it felt horrible off his foot when he swung through it. But I noticed you guys had a long conversation going into the tunnel right after that. What did you guys talk about?
Yeah, he alluded to it. It didn't feel the best off his foot. I said it went through the yellow upright, so we're good. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of technical stuff that we were talking about there. Just, good moment for him, good moment for our team.
What did you think when it left his foot? Did you think it had a chance?
Sure. I mean, anything that Matt kicks has a chance. It came off lower than what some of his other kicks, like, was it Minnesota he hit the 62-yarder last year or 2 years ago? Like, that looked like one of his normal kicks. He doesn't have to change trajectory, he doesn't change footwork. He's just got that kind of power in his leg.
When you look back at the film and you see the laces are in, and I assume that's just going to happen sometimes, right? Given the operation, or as a coach, you we really can't have that happen.
I mean, it's not ideal, but Matt can overcome some things. I've always thought when you have a really good field goal kicker, I have to really coach the holder, the snapper, the protection group. Because without all those things happening, it's hard to make those kicks, kind of overcome those things. But we did in that instance, and you hope you're more consistent going forward.
All those 50 pluses, doesn't it take more than just a strong leg to be that good at what he's done over the course of his career?
Absolutely.
What else besides a strong leg do you need as a kicker to do that? 72 kicks over 50? That's crazy.
Yeah. It starts with leg strength, right? Because you're not going to attempt anything that you don't think you have a chance at. Matt's just he's accurate from distance, and that's what the history shows. And I think that gives the head coach confidence that that's something that we should entertain. I think that gives Matt confidence that that's something that he's very capable of, and the guys that are supporting him, blocking for him, I think they know if we do our job, he's going to do his.
If you don't get the Dortch return to start that sequence, do you think that Drew and Jonathan want to go for even trying to get in field goal range? Because that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. Like, in my mind, their punter's really good, and they have a good gunner, and that guy's good at hang time, that guy's good at direction. So that ball is the ball I expected to see. It's a 5-second hang time at 50 yards. So, the decision was made initially, should we be in a situation where we try to pressure, or should we try a return here? And we ultimately chose the return because it was like, we have to get this thing started. When you're pressuring, you put 8 guys in the box. Generally speaking, if the punter puts the ball in a certain place, it's going to be a dead play. So that's kind of where it starts. The next thing is, what does it look like after that play? Fortunately for us, Dortch has a 17-yard return. It's a 31 net punt, but it did burn 12 seconds. Fortunately for us, they decided to jump off sides twice, which saved us timeouts. In that situation, a couple of guys made good plays, and we got into that range that we felt comfortable. So, sometimes I've been in situations like, hey, we've got to get to the 35-yard line to have a chance of this. That's 9 more yards, which may or may not happen in that situation. But you do the best you can to put yourself into positions where you're going to score points, and we were successful there.
You talked about figuring out the line based on situation. Is that line the same? If not, how different? Like, how far apart are they usually? And then, what is the process to that goes into you talking to Matt about where he feels comfortable in pregame?
I've got a pretty good idea if we're playing indoors what all of those things are going to say. Now, you don't know the situation of the game, but we've got enough experience together to they're not long conversations. And honestly, Matt's attitude with most of the stuff is like, I'm ready to kick, so you just tell me. It'll vary. It can vary in a game. You know, you start off and, you know, the conditions are calm and, you know, it's not below 50 degrees and, you know, the weather changes all of a sudden. Well, you've got to update those things accordingly and be able to relay that communication to the head coach and the offensive play caller so they know kind of what we're looking at. You don't want them to come to the sideline and say, if I'd have known I just needed 2 more yards, we would have done this or whatever. So we try and stay in communication with that.
Right before the Michael Wilson play, Greg returned the kickoff, and I think it was from about 2 or 3 yards deep. Mm-hmm. Is that an area where you're comfortable with him doing that, or was it the game situation that you felt you were hoping maybe to get some extra yards?
Yeah, I didn't think he was too deep to say, boy, what an interesting decision that was. I thought he could have done either one in that situation. He could have touched it back or we could have returned it. I learned this when I was in Denver, and you're playing at altitude, and I was there for 4 years. And what happens is everybody's kicking touchbacks against you. You're kicking touchbacks against other people, and that's not reality when you get late in the year, when it's November and it's December and you're playing in adverse conditions. So I'm okay with us, you know, covering a kickoff, returning a kickoff so our guys can get some experience so we can coach that part of it, because other teams that play in that stuff all the time, when there's wind and there's weather, they're getting 6 more weeks of return balls in those situations than we are. So you got to kind of pick and choose when you want to do those things. I wasn't disappointed with Greg's decision there. I think he got to the 24, touchbacks at 25. We could have done better on that play, but I was okay with that decision.
Regardless of who the personnel was, this is kind of what you imagine it looking like in real time.
Yeah, I think it's such a hard question to answer because the personnel is so tied to what it will look like. And that's true week to week. It's true when I got here, and it will evolve, and it consistently changes throughout the course of the year. Certainly was happy with the way the guys went out and performed on Sunday, but I think it's got to look different every week depending on the matchup and who we need to emphasize and who we need to attack.
Is there another jump here, the jump you've made week to week here? Do you see more progress to make with the offense?
Yeah, I think if we're going to get to where we want to go long term, I think we need to improve every day. I think that's the mindset that we have to take in the meeting room. That's the mindset we have to take on the field. Whether it's individuals improving, whether it's the scheme improving, I think that has to be at the forefront of everything we do in this organization.
Not to make too much of the win, and not to say that this staff, doesn't believe in what they're doing, but for a staff that is, for so many of them, in the first-time role, first time in the NFL, to get that first win, is there any sort of relief of, okay, the process we're doing is working and things are going in the right direction and this is the proof of that?
Yeah, I think anytime, you're doing something for the first time, you're looking for a little self-validation and say, hey, I'm doing the right things, I'm doing it the right way. I think you see that on the day-to-day, but certainly it's always nice to see it in the scoreboard. At the end of the day, that's why we do this. We play to win. So was really excited for us as an offense, for the team, for everybody involved to go out there and get the win on Sunday.
The explosives that you were able to generate as an offense?
Yeah, I think a lot of it speaks to the players. I mean, those guys work extremely hard, in the run and the pass game, and there's so many people that go into every one of those plays. It takes everybody on the field during the week, understanding the scheme, getting great looks from our scout team, and then going out and executing. So I think that's hats off to the players on those plays because they really made them work.
I know that Gannon doesn't like to make it about himself, but for somebody who has worked with him for so many years to see him get to this point, did you have any special words for him after his first win as a head coach?
It was emotional, honestly. You put a lot into this as a profession, as a team. To see someone in that position that you're close with have that success, it was really fun. It was a great moment.
You mentioned everyone on big plays. What went into using Rondale on that running play, and what, aside from just his ability, obviously led to that play working the way it did?
Yeah, obviously, we talked about Rondell a little bit in this room. I think he's a great player. I think he brings a lot to the offense, to the team. I think he presents a lot of challenges for the defense. I think you've seen that in really every game that we've played, in different ways that we've moved him around the formation, used him in different roles. And on that given play, he kind of just took advantage of a really well-blocked play and a great look, and he did the rest himself. I mean, when he put his foot in the ground and kind of took off, you could feel his speed and his power as he got through the hole. So it was really well blocked, and anytime you hit an explosive run, you're going to have somebody on the perimeter doing their job as well. So it's always good to see guys hustling down the field, blocking down the field, to finish that play and make sure it got in the end zone.
Where does the process begin with something like that? Like, hey, forward look good in the backfield, or we think that this could be effective?
I think you look at stuff he's done in his past and the way he is with the ball in his hand and how dynamic he can be, and just say, hey, how many different ways can we get him in that position where he's in space with the ball, whether it's in the passing game, in the running game, a little bit of both. We started to emphasize it a little bit in that first game and hit him on some different things, and certainly that will continue moving forward.
How much do you think his motion on the play to Michael, along with Michael being kind of tight into the line, led to that play developing the way it did?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. Anytime you can move guys around, especially with some speed, it creates a lot of communication on defense. And one of the things that we work and look for every week is, hey, how do we create confusion? How do we make them off balance? How do we get them into something they're not comfortable doing? And I think that motion certainly helped, create that explosive play.
You want the offense to kind of adjust every week based on who you're playing in personnel. How much carryover is there week to week in what you're doing, I guess?
Yeah, it's a question that changes week to week depending on how similar the matchup might be. Hey, is the front structure, is the personnel, from a defensive perspective, I'm saying, has a big portion of, hey, we left a lot of things on the call sheet that we liked, and it's a similar scheme. Or, hey, there's some stuff we left on this call sheet we liked, but different defense, different scheme. So I think that's always kind of finding that balance of, hey, these are plays that we're familiar with, that we've had good reps on, that fit who we're playing, and, hey, we need to go out and attack a different look, a different coverage, a different scheme. So there's a balance there, but I'd say there's definitely carryover week to week, and there has to be to some extent, because you can't expect them to learn an entirely new playbook in 6 days.
Do the big plays happen if you're not running the ball with Connor constantly? I mean, does he set those all up?
And he had a couple himself with the ball in his hand. Yeah, I think he's a big part of that. I mean, certainly the threat of him running the ball and just what he brings to the running game, I think certainly allows us to create some big plays in the passing game. He's a dynamic runner, as we talked about. Defenses, I think, certainly have to account for him and his ability, and a lot of his ability is based on what those front 5, 6, 7 guys do in front of him. We can't run the ball well without a great offensive line, tight ends working hard in the run game, and receivers on the perimeter. So it takes 11 guys to run it, but when you do run it well, and he's a big part of that, I think it sets up other opportunities for guys in the passing game.
To load the box against you guys then, just to stop some of all that?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to do what they do. I mean, they've played that defense at such a high level for such a long time. I don't think we're going to see a different San Francisco defense. Certainly they're going to have their game plan adjustments and some of the things that they want to do against us that maybe didn't apply to other teams. But for the most part, I mean, that the talent level, the coaching, the detail, I mean, it's been part of that organization, really since Kyle has taken over. Don't expect that to change this week or any week for that matter.
Pass rush as a whole, specifically Micah Parsons, was essentially a non-factor. After looking at the film, what did you see from your O-line and how they made that happen?
Yeah, as you said, I think the O-line obviously and the tight ends had a huge part in that. Whether it's chipping on the edge, staying in protection, affecting those guys in their rushes, and then certainly those front 5 in terms of communication, execution of the plan, just a great job of finishing and effort. That's one of those things that you see from a lot of the fronts in the NFL is they never stop. So as an offensive line, you have to keep going. The play is never over, and I thought they did a really nice job of that on Sunday.
Following up on what Danny asked, just when you only have to pass 21 times and you stay in third and manageable or try to avoid third and long, I mean, as you pivot to the Niners, really any opponent, I mean, how much is it validation to just show the team, when you do those things, you can have success?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, certainly, as you said, staying out of third and medium, third and long is what this league is about, regardless of who you're playing. So I think finding ways to do that. Sometimes that may be throwing the ball 40, 45 times to stay out of those situations. But I think it is a critical message to the offense at all times, guys. Hey, if we're in third and 8+ in this league, it's not a lot of fun for anybody. So it was great to see that come to fruition on Sunday. I thought the guys really did a nice job.
This is a week-to-week league, but playing like you did on Sunday, how much does that, you think, raises everybody's confidence level now going to play a team like the 49ers in that defense?
Yeah, I think it's a balance because I think the other thing you don't want to do is think you've arrived. Like you have a good game, you played some good football. Hey, we're not where we need to be yet. So we got to continue to work. We got to show up on Wednesday ready to go. I think that mindset might be more important to some extent than saying, hey, we built some confidence. I think guys should have confidence in what they're doing. Hopefully they did before we won the game. And I don't want it to have too much confidence moving forward. I think that's going to be a big message this week is, hey, it's a new week in the NFL, and it's a week-to-week league, so we got to show up and practice and prepare just like we did the week before, and that's going to be true the rest of the season.
Anything surprise you about Josh's performance, especially this past weekend, or this is what you expected once he got comfortable?
Yeah, I think that you're seeing who Josh is, and he's the same guy every week. So I wouldn't say I was surprised. Certainly, it's nice to see it on a stage like that. But that's kind of what I expect from him. He's unfazed, prepared, ready to go at all times. The situation is never too big for him. So was excited to see him go out there and have success.
What goes through your head when you see him take off like he did on that run? And then
Don't get hurt. No, it's, the first thing is score. Like, hey, can he get to the, but I think it was obviously when he pulled it and saw he had some space and, to the surprise might have been kind of that extra gear he kind of turned on there as he went down the sideline. Like, he can run and he's fast, but really to see him open up was kind of exciting. And then there is definitely a part of you, it's like, hey, man, just like step out of bounds. But no, it was obviously a great play by him.
How are you with your red zone offense through 3 games?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's some things we've done really well down there. I think there's some room for improvement. Anytime we kick a field goal, I'm going to say, hey, we gave up 4 points. We're happy we scored, but we left some points on the field. And trying to look critically at why. Was it scheme? Was it technique? Was it execution? To make sure that we're addressing those things as we go through the course of the year so that, hey, in a perfect world, we're scoring a touchdown every time we get there. Realistically, that probably won't happen, but we have to understand why to make sure we're maximizing our opportunities when we get down there. So I think we've done some really good things down there. I think there's certainly room for improvement, though.
When you guys traded for Josh, I know you had other quarterbacks here, you're still trying to figure out, but in your head, just how you were thinking, were you thinking he was going to end up being the starter when you guys got started?
I mean, honestly, no. And I think I've said this about that position, said about a number of positions. We're going to put whoever gives us the best chance to win on the field. So when we got him, certainly I knew a little bit about him as a person, as a player, what he brought to the table. But I still believe in the other guys in that room. And that's true in a lot of those rooms. Like, hey, there are guys on the field right now that are playing, not because I don't believe in the guy behind him. I just think the guy that's out there on the field gives us the best opportunity to win. And I think that's the mindset you have to continue to take in every room throughout the course of a season, throughout the course of a year. So was excited to see him win that opportunity and earn that opportunity, but I don't think that was a predetermined conclusion. No.
3 games without an interception for him.
Huge. I mean, certainly, one of the things that we stress as a team, as an offense, is we are about the ball. So you have to take care of the ball, whether it's in terms of quarterback center exchange, handoffs, running with it, and certainly decision-making and accuracy in the passing game is a huge part of that. So need to continue to emphasize that, but really happy with that.
This was the most complete game, but through 3 games, the first half has been where the offense has really been consistently strong. The second half, are you noticing, is that more execution from your offense, or is it adjustments being made by your opponents more so? And what are you noticing that's the difference between the halves? Yeah,
I mean, again, it's something we need to continue to look at. It's such a small sample size, too, that I don't want to overreact to say, hey, we're doing something different or doing something wrong, and we need to change who we are. So we've certainly taken a look at those situations. I think it's a combination of a number of the things that you just said, and some of it's the situation you end up in the football game. Sometimes you're backed up. Sometimes a penalty puts you behind the sticks. Things like that come up that can make it hard. And I think our emphasis in the room has been, hey, here are the things that are stopping us. This is why it was execution on this play. Hey, this is scheme related. This isn't a great call. Or, hey, we can't have this penalty, and this is why it's hard to overcome the 10-yard penalty and getting behind the sticks. So, and getting into the 3rd and longs that we've tried to avoid. So I think some of it's a little bit of both. Like, they're good too. They're going to say, hey, why are we giving up so many points in the first half? So I think we need to stay aware of that, but I also don't want to overreact to it yet.
You mentioned being emotional. There was probably no one more emotional after the game than Monty. As you were coming off, what did you get? Did you get a shoulder slap, a hug? What did you?
I think I got all of the above. I wasn't. It was just kind of a whirlwind. It was awesome to see him excited like that. Obviously, he's put so much time and effort into everything that we do as an organization, and was really excited for him. And it was fun to be a part of.
What's it been like for you? Your first 3 games of play caller to watch the offense, kind of get better and better, but put up 20 points 2 weeks in a row in the first half, kind of play at the level it's in.
Honestly, you work so hard with these guys, and you know what they put into it and what's required of them as players. So to watch them go out there and have that success, I wouldn't say like proud is the right word, but there's a sense of just like happiness for them, of just watching them go out there and do what they love, do it at a high level, because I do believe in those guys and they work so hard at it. So to see them have that success has been a lot of fun to be a part of, and it's been awesome.
69-yard passing catch with Michael Wilson. He's so wide open. You see the Boston coverage. You see him just get that much open space. Is that what it's all about as a play caller?
Yes and no. Honestly, it's all of it. Like, it's the little things. It's finishing the game with the ball in 4 minutes and running out the clock and being able to take a knee. It's watching guys, doing something we did in practice and correct it and say, hey, we can't do it this way. This is why. And then go and see them do it the right way in the game. I think it's all those little moments that kind of make it fun and make it enjoyable. And certainly when you have success on the scoreboard, it makes it that much more fun. But yeah.
Part of that was the 3rd and 1 push play. Did Jonathan suggest that, or has that been part of what you guys have been planning for?
A little bit of both. I mean, Jonathan does a great job of kind of communicating with me on terms of what he's seeing from the other side of the ball, around the league, things that have been hard on them. Certainly that's a play that people have struggled to stop, and if it shows up enough, we got to, give our try at it and see if we're good at it. So it was great to see those guys go out and execute it in a critical situation.
Pretty clear to you what the offensive line is doing to help James on the running game, and then maybe address some of the challenges you're going to face with San Francisco.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, that the offensive line has really done a great job. I mean, I think they've embraced the role, the offense, how we want to play the game, and certainly their success is our success. Generally speaking, offense goes as the O-line goes. I've always thought that, whether it's pass game or run game. So to see our success, a lot of it goes directly through them. And then to the second part of the question, San Francisco, it's going to be a big challenge. I mean, it's a great front, really a great 11, but certainly a great front 4, great front 7. So our guys are going to have to prepare hard, be ready to go, and make sure they know what's coming, because it's going to be a fight.
Going off your point about the O-line, DJ Humphrey said after the game that yelled it for a hold, kind of kept the group together. How valuable has 72 been to the production of the offense?
Huge. Yeah, he's done a really nice job. I think that's a position where the physical aspect and the mental aspect probably is a little bit underestimated at times. Certainly there's a lot that goes into playing center from a physical standpoint, but the mental aspect of what you're doing on the field from a communication standpoint, not just with the O-line, with the quarterback, with the running backs, with everyone involved in the run game and protections, and then that carries over to the sideline. Just his leadership, his calmness, the way he handles himself, I think it really does help that group as a whole.
With the challenge of the Niners this week, how much did you allow yourself to enjoy the win? How long did it take?
Sunday night. I had a couple people say, hey, you got to enjoy this one. But yeah, I got a couple hours. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to watch it again. And then really even before I went to bed, I needed to start peeking at the next opponent. It's the hardest part about the league when you win, and probably the best part about it when you lose. It's like you can't worry about it. You got to worry about the next one. So we jumped right into it briefly Sunday night, and then when we came in on Monday morning, put the game to bed and got rolling.
Was there any concern when it was a 5-point game in the 4th quarter, and of course you had the going for the 2 the first time, we after the penalty, and then chasing the point the next time? Was there any concern that, oh my goodness, that might come back to haunt us?
No, I think at any time, and this is true when you're going to make decisions in football, I think in a lot of areas, and this is obviously harder on the head coach than it is on the offensive coordinator, but you have to do what's right in the moment regardless of the outcome, right? And I've always said that, and that's a big part of analytics. Like, if it's 60-40, you got to choose 60 every time. 4 out of 10 times, you're going to be wrong. And you can't look back and say, I made the wrong decision, it didn't work, I should have done the other thing. You said, no, I went with the right decision, and the outcome wasn't what I wanted. I got to be willing to make that decision again. So I don't think at any point during the game you can look back and say, hey, we coulda, shoulda. It's about, hey, we're in a 5-point game. This is what we got to do moving forward, and that's where it's got to be.
With Yelda, it's the same as with Josh, where you knew something that the rest of us didn't know about how well he could play if given the opportunity.
Yes and no. I mean, certainly I had a more familiarity with him, but I think he's really come in and surprised me and surprised himself, surprised his teammates in the way he's handled it and kind of the way he's earned that role and taken over that role. He's done a really nice job with it. I think it speaks a lot more to him than it does anything I knew or anything I thought about.
Curious what your thoughts are on Matt Prater's ability to keep booting him in 50+.
Yeah, that was impressive, to say the least. I wasn't exactly sure what yard line we got to. I knew it wasn't a short kick and kind of started walking to the locker room, and when I saw the thing go over the goalpost, I was it's impressive. I mean, there's not a lot of guys in the league who can do that.
As you said after the game, there was some bend but not break, and I guess that was kind of the ultimate showing of that, with them continually getting inside. I mean, how do you take that as a coordinator? Hey, they don't get in the end zone. Is that good enough? Or are you disappointed they got inside the red zone so long?
If you score more points than the other team, you usually win the game. So That is the key, is ultimately keep them out of the end zone. Now, you want your offense on the field. You don't want long drives. You don't want explosive. You don't want fast drives. You don't want them to come away with points. But I was pleased with, obviously, how we played in the red zone. That was critical to the game. I don't know if you ever go into a game saying, hey, let's bend but not break, right? Because red zone defense is not easy, and hats off to the players. They did a good job executing it. But yeah, that's what we needed to do to win that game, and that's how that game played out. And I was happy with the red zone.
It was a big reverse from the week before when the Giants got down there and scored a touchdown almost every time, and then of course the field goal at the end. But was there any difference, or is it just coming down to players making plays?
Yeah, I think after one more week of preparation and our preparation going into Dallas, we executed better in the red zone. And that was huge, from, honestly, the first 2 weeks, it wasn't really what you want to be in the red zone. Even going back to, Washington, quarterback got out of the pocket, scrambled for a touchdown, scrambled and threw a touchdown. So I was pleased with the players and us coaches. Maybe coached it a little bit better, had a little bit better plan. But the red zone defense was obviously improved from week 1 and week 2.
How do you go about doing the things you want to do when guys are dropping like flies in terms of injuries and losing the defensive lineman, and then Zaven goes down and then Chris goes down? How do you deal with that? I know it's next man up, but when we're talking about building something for the personnel you have, and then you don't have that personnel.
Yeah, if you have something built very specifically for personnel, you better have a backup plan going into the game, right? And that's always discussed. I always use the term, if this guy's shoe comes off, right? Because you don't want to talk about injuries, but that happens. And what's our plan if this guy's shoe comes off? And so you talk about, you have a shoe plan. I'm just going to start calling it the shoe plan. You got to have a shoe plan. And sometimes it's significant, and sometimes it's, okay, here we go. The next guy's in, we're running. We know these are the calls that we wanted in this situation. Feel great. Let's go execute it with who's in the game. So it can depend, not on the game, on the situation within the game. Maybe it's the third down plan's got to change, but the first, second down plan is consistent. So the key is that you do have a plan when their shoe comes off.
How was your shoe collection this week looking?
My shoe collection this week? It took me a second to figure out what you were getting at right there. I started thinking about my shoes. Gosh, my shoes are dirty. I feel good with the guys we have ready to go. I've talked about this a lot. There's good depth on this defense, and I feel very comfortable with a lot of people stepping into play. So I don't feel any type of way about it. I'm confident.
Was getting a lot of attention. What have you made so far from his growth from week to week, and just how he has continued to?
Yeah, I think number one is he is a fighter. He will battle. I talked to him about this. He plays the toughest position on defense, and you're on an island out there, a corner. You're on we call it the highway, and it's very easy to get discouraged because you might play in a 65-play game, 63 great snaps, and you have 2 bad snaps, and everybody knows about it, right? And to have that resiliency is very important at that position, and he's very resilient. So I appreciate that with him. And then I do see some improvements throughout his game, like his press technique to me it got a lot better this past game. And he knows he needs to continue on with some other elements of his coverage, but he's continuing to improve every week. He is. And he's got the mindset to continue to do that throughout the season.
They have those other packages with all the outside linebackers playing in the front when you have so many injuries in that process.
Yeah. I think, we talk about being versatile, being adaptable. That personnel is part of that, right? And that's kind of like when we first got here. Is what's best for this defense, and then now, do you structure it in a way that you can change it week to week if you need to, right? Depending on what your shoe collection looks like. And that's thought out in advance of, and I credit to JG. He's shaped my mind to think this way of it. You need to have structure where you can change pieces around, and it doesn't feel like to the players, man, like what is this brand new defense? It's okay, it's being pitched to me like this, but conceptually, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do in my job. So yeah, it's important.
Come up with all of that? Did you have that in your head, like, coming into Arizona, or did you see what you were working with in terms of personnel and be like, hey, we have all these guys, we can utilize them in all these different...
Yeah, I mean, both. Like, I think you acquire knowledge over time and have ideas of different ways to do it. To me, the bigger your knowledge is, the bigger your knowledge pool is, the more you can draw different concepts and what fits what we do. And then obviously when you first get here, you got to assess who you have and what you want to do with it, but then also using the entire staff, right? Because they're going to have knowledge that I don't have. And that's what I was very adamant about when I put the staff together, and me and JG put the staff together, is got to have guys that are very knowledgeable and bring other things to the table. And so every person on my staff is very important with bringing ideas tactically, technically to the table to fit the pieces of the puzzle and be adaptable, whether that was on the forefront back in the off season or week to week. What do we got to change?
Looked like Stilly got in there, and so I'm wondering what you saw from him, and then also what did it mean to have Lecky back?
Yeah, Ben, I'll just comment on Ben. He is one of the smartest players I've ever been with. So when he's in there, he has a great sense of what plays are coming, and then when he comes off, hey, this happened, this was an issue. He's very, very good with his communication to the coaches on what we need to do to adapt in the run game, in the pass rush, and to me, he is a strong run defender, and he came in and did a really good job there. And then having Lecky back was obviously really important for us. You know, Lecky can push pocket in the pass rush, and he can hold double teams. He can win one-on-one blocks in the run game. So he's doing a good job of kind of playing a lot of different spots up front.
You can contain McCaffrey, which is not easy, but if you're able to kind of keep him reasonably contained, what else do you have to worry about the Niners?
You're trying to wonder if Debo and all those other guys are pretty good too. Yeah, they got a lot of good skill players. So your question is, if I contain McCaffrey, what's next?
A lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job overall at using their personnel in multiple ways, right? It's the offense allows different guys to get touches from different spots, right? And they do a good job of getting the guys that can really make it go, their touches, but you see other guys getting touches as well. They present issues structurally because you don't know where guys are going to be. And you can say you want to take away a guy or not, but you have no idea where that guy could align. And they do a really good job of that, of just changing their pieces around. But I'm sure to their players, it's simple in their mind, if I had to guess, and you can judge that based on they execute at a high level. So yeah, you got to be able to adapt to how they're deploying it differently, and you definitely got to try to not let those playmakers get going. They got a lot of them.
Drew mentioned that the win was emotional, the first one for the staff. How long did you celebrate it? How did you celebrate it, and when did you kind of turn the page?
Yeah, I would say I turned the page pretty quick because I know this opponent we have coming up is a really good opponent. So obviously celebrated in the locker room, enjoyed that moment. Was happy for JG and Monty getting their first win. Happy for the players. It was good to get that win under our belt. But I showered pretty quickly, and I got in the car, and I went home, and I was ready to start pressing on to the next week.
You mentioned Monty, and he was celebrating there before getting to the locker room.
Yeah.
What did you get from him as you were?
A hug, a big hug. Yeah. Well, it was probably like a dap-up hug, like a ah. So yeah, he was into it. I loved that. He was there, dapping up everybody. You could see he was excited about it. JG probably hit his excitement a little bit more than Monty did, but I know the whole team, obviously a big win for the team, right? And I was happy to see people in the locker room and enthused and juiced up about it.
Not to take away from the other opponents, but with San Francisco, a team that has arguably top players in each of their positions with Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle. I mean, Purdy's been playing pretty well. I mean, is it almost overwhelming of, okay, how do I game plan when you can't just take away one player because they've got still so many others they could rely on?
Yeah, I think they've done a good job of building their personnel to what they want to do offensively. So good players across the board coupled with a really good scheme, it definitely presents a challenge. And, it's on us throughout the week now to put the right plan together, to get the players prepared. We got to get the players executing the scheme and technique at a high level, because not only is their scheme good, but they're good at blocking. They're good with the ball in their hands. They play hard. I know they pride themselves on played hard, playing physical, playing violent, just like we do. So there's multiple layers to playing these guys that you have to bring your A game in all those spots.
I know that obviously Purdy didn't make it real far when you guys played him last year in the playoffs because of the injury, but you obviously had to prepare for this offense all that week. Does that feel recent enough where you feel like you can get something out of that in terms of what you had to go through prepping for that game?
Yeah, this offense is really good, and I would say probably for the past 5 years, I look at this offense every offseason, regardless of if they're on the schedule or not. So, last year we played them when I was in Philly, we played them in championship game. I actually put a study together on them in the offseason, just because anything they're running and it starts working, you're going to see it around the league anyways, So there's definitely just my understanding of what they do, that carries over into this week. And, that game plan, obviously, there is some carryover from what we did in Philly and what we do here, as far as, when an offense like them is very multiple, it can do a lot of things. You have to keep things simple for yourself and be able to execute your staples. And so, we're always going to be able to say, hey, this is what we do, and we have to be able to go out and do it against these guys. So, yeah, there's definitely carryover week to week.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
When Zaven came out with the eye, you used BJ and Victor, kind of like a rotation. Is that how you did it?
Yeah, that, like we talk about, those guys are on the front, right? Those guys are on the outside backers, front part of the D-line, outside backers. Everyone's playing. So, we had 6 of them up. All 6 were playing. It became 5. All 5 were rotating. I let the position coaches handle those rotations throughout the game, and that's what we thought was the best way to keep them fresh. And those guys were playing good, and we kept them rolling in.
What do you say Saban's eye to you? And you've seen him, I'm sure, since the game. Does it look like good for him?
I'm not much of an eye doctor. No, you'd have to ask JG about those injuries. Yeah.
What do you see from Purdy that's allowed him to achieve at the level that he has?
I think he fits exactly what they're trying to do very well. As far as being able to process and throw the ball on time, he's as good as it gets. When he's going through his progressions and he knows that they have this first progression up versus certain coverage, if he has it, ball's getting out of his hand. And if he doesn't have it, to the naked eye, you would never have thought he even looked over to that side because he read the coverage that fast. And what it does is it keeps that offense in rhythm to where he's getting the ball out of his hand. He's not taking a lot of sacks. He's not getting strip sacked. And what it does when you're going through your progressions and you get the ball out on time is on that second and third progression, the ball is hitting his receiver's hands in stride, which is what they're really good at, right? The yards after the catch. And so he's doing a great job of staying on time within that offense, being able to read where he's got to go with the football and getting it to guys where they're it's in the right spot on them so that they can continue upfield and split too. So he does that, I think, very well, along with being an accurate guy and then also a guy when stuff goes bad and it breaks down, he can escape. He's mobile, and you got to account for all that with playing him. So he's doing a heck of a job.
When you were talking about Keytrell being a fighter, Marco had his struggles at the end of the Giants game. How did he bounce back last week?
Bounced back really well. I thought he played a really good game. Couple things that he knows he could probably get better at. A couple probably tackles he'd want back, but overall, very pleased with Marco's performance.
Lean on Cam Thomas a little bit late there, and how big was that tackle for a loss when they were down at the 5?
Cam did a great job at the end of the game. It was huge. He had a couple big plays that just kept them from, continue to get closer to the goal line and put them in a little bit third and a little bit longer, give us a little bit of breathing room, which led to, Kaiser making that play. So I was very pleased with that. Cam plays extremely hard, and he fought to the end there, which made some critical plays. I talked to Cam today. I told him I like the way he's been rushing. He's rushing consistent, whether the stat sheet shows it or not. He's doing a good job of pushing that pocket back and getting on the quarterback's lap.
Well,
Jonathan Gannon?
Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah.
And you said earlier that he kind of hit his emotion after the win. With how upbeat he always is, why do you think that we saw that change from him after such a big moment in his career and his life?
Well, JG's never really been super emotional on game day. You know what I'm saying? Now, he is a very upbeat personality. I think I would even say that's kind of similar to how I get on game day. You're so locked in on just your performance. It's hard to go from being extremely rational and just focus on decision making to whippy, So I think part of it is definitely that, as far as that's hard to actually turn back on. And I think JG is highly emotionally intelligent, so where he does not let emotions affect his decisions on game day or in the office throughout the week. So I think that's probably, if I had to guess, you say I know him, I do know him pretty well. Very similar to me of we won, good job. Yep. Oh, here's Monty. Monty's really excited. Better dap him up.
We've seen guys being used in a lot of different ways. Maybe not how they were used previously. What goes into that as a staff? How far back does that go?
Yeah. OTAs and training camp, we talk about, one of the important things is to evaluate. And you're not just evaluating who's going to make the 53, practice squad, anything like that. You're evaluating how you can use guys, right? And so you don't necessarily know that purely off of watching last year's tape, whether the guy was here with the Cardinals or was a free agent or a college player, because maybe they weren't used in that way with wherever they were last. And so you have to let kind of guys just play football, not try to do too much early on in training camp to where you're pigeonholing guys into roles, and see what they really can do, see if they improve in certain spots, and then from there assess, hey, maybe we could use this person in this type of role. So that's how roles are forever changing. You know what I'm saying? Whether that's through training camp, OTAs, during the season, and so you kind of have to let guys show you what they can do before you really give them a role.
You mentioned talking about Marco. Did you breathe a big sigh of relief when they picked up that flag for the DPI?
Yeah. No, honestly, in that moment, you're just sitting there. I want to know the answer more than I really even am thinking about I hope for this result, because it's I need to know is this ball going to be at the 1 yard line? I need to know what defense I'm about to get into here, or are they picking it up and I'm playing wherever it was at the previous play. So that's constantly where my mind is going in that situation. It's not thinking about give me this result or oh no, not that result, but it's more of if this is the result, what do I have to do here? If this is the result, what do I have to do here? Honestly.
Surprised they picked it up?
Oh gosh, no, I'm not the officials. I'll leave that for people that study. There's a lot that goes into officiating a game. That's not my expertise.
That Shanahan scheme that you study, we've heard a lot of Cardinals defenders in the past say that offense keeps them honest. What do they mean by that?
I didn't say that.
Players have said it keeps them honest and it'll ungap the defense. Just that Shanahan scheme, I guess. So, what have you seen out of that scheme that maybe is unique to that?
Yeah,
Or
you know,
what's everybody else follow that you?
I think I don't know about the honest comment, but like they do a really good job of everything complements, and then on top of that, adding the right personnel into what they want to do. Whether that's their outside zone schemes, they do a great job of being able to manipulate points, to buy angles in the run game, use motion, change their combinations up, all of that, and then on top of that, now all of a sudden they come back to some gap scheme and it's going to look very similar. You know what I'm saying? On the backside, they're be-deucing it to where they're taking off. Oh, here goes outside zone again, and then they're washing you down and creasing you. So I think what they probably mean when they say honest is you can't just bank them for one thing because everything complements very well. And then on top of all those run actions comes the nakeds, the play actions, shots. So they do a good job of, hiding it all. You can't tell what's coming, and it all looks the same. So that's probably what they're getting at.